we discuss how alchemy itself is relevant to olfactory magic and perfumery and incenses and all the essential oils and such things that we speak. So alchemy is another of the magical arts, often misunderstood, representing both a psychological process and a physical process. Both levels are concerned with essence. Paracelsus, a 16th century doctor and theorist, described alchemy as the voluntary action of man in harmony with the involuntary action of nature. The process in the alchemical vessel is analogous to the process of spiritual transformation in the psyche of the alchemist. Two of the main preoccupations of alchemists were the relationship between body and spirit and the perfection of the soul. Modern chemistry, metallurgy, and medicine all trace their roots back to the ancient experimental science of alchemy. The art of perfumery also owes a lot to this prototypical science. The physical process of extracting natural perfumes from crude substances has had a long evolution. In this century, there has been a revolution in technology. Since volatile oils are found in a wide variety of substances other than flowers, a few new techniques have developed. Though preparation of the raw materials may differ, the three main production techniques are distillation, expression, and extraction. In removing and concentrating essential oils, the modern perfumer still allows the three main stages of alchemical work: separation, purification, and recombination. This process is expressed in the alchemical axiom, solva et coagula, meaning dissolve and combine. The process of distillation can be seen as a metaphor for human spiritual development. The breaking down, solve, and heating of a plant materials liberated their essence, or first matter, while coagula means to create new substances with additional desirable characteristics. In psychological terms, distillation requires the sacrifice of old notions. It is the breaking down and destruction of outworn or random attitudes that alienate us from the self. The soul, our most characteristic quality, can rise in meditation much as the distillate rises. Through this process, the heavenly aspect latent in all earthly things is slowly liberated. Psychologically, combining signifies the building of a fully integrated personality. In much the same way, different qualities of volatile oils are married in a mature perfume. Thus, alchemy may be carried out as either a physical or mental operation. However, it should not be reduced to only a metaphor of psychological and philosophical transformation. The practice of alchemy always requires experimentation within the lab or the psyche. The approach to alchemy in Jungian psychology is primarily mental, although it can take physical form. For example, you might ritually act out certain aspects of the great work, the process of transforming a base substance to a subtle essence. The interpretation of alchemy as a spontaneous, unconscious process comes from a basically mental or Greek orientation. We refer to this type of approach as Greek because the ancient Greeks still developed theories without experimentation on how the world works. The type of alchemy that aims at rejuvenating or preserving the physical body is descended from the physically oriented Egyptian alchemy. The traditions of conscious, inner spiritual alchemy come mainly from the Islamic and Oriental philosophies. Using alchemy, the ancients sought to produce medicinal elixirs, essences, and tinctures, as recounted in Junius's The Practical Handbook of Plant Alchemy. Alchemy takes its name from an ancient name for Egypt, and this is indeed the land of its origin in the West. This rudimentary experimental science refined mummification with the use of plant substances. Aspects of alchemy spread throughout the Middle East and gained entry to Europe during the Crusades. The Arabs were apparently the first to discover and utilize distillation, or extraction of the spirit of the fragrant substance. The essential oils were equated with the volatile sulfur, also known as the Sol, or Apollo. Arabic alchemy made a great revolutionary leap forward when it was applied by Avicenna or Ibn Sina. He was primarily a physician, but one who had reputedly mastered Muslim theology and Greek sciences by the time he was 16. He is credited with being the first to concentrate attar, the volatile oil of flowers. Prior to that, perfume was extracted largely from gums and barks. A romantic version of the discovery tells how Princess Nourmahal ordered a large tank filled with water and red roses and placed on a barge so that she could smell the roses as she floated along. As this barge was rowed in the heat of the sun and oil floated on the surface of the water. However, the discovery occurred. This early distillation process was simple. The roses were placed in a copper alembic or vessel and a fire lit beneath it. 22 pounds of flowers was heated in 16 gallons of water, and the steam was driven into a vat where it condensed and ran into a receiving flask. This quantity of flowers produced 2 1-gallon flasks of rose water. 8 gallons of this rose water was redistilled into a single gallon of distillate. When this cools, the otto rises to the top and can be collected with a small ladle shaped like an inverted cone. The oily liquid quickly solidifies, and all excess water is filtered out. In examining this process, we can create an analogy between the distillation process and psychological and spiritual development. Distillation can be viewed as a symbolizing meditation or the striving of the mind up towards the plane of archetypal ideas. Distillation demonstrates the constant interaction of the complementaries, matter and spirit. In this case, there are 4 stages to the alchemical process. Number 1, spirit attains separate consciousness in matter. Number 2, after a time, spirit desires identification with the whole universe and sublimates, leaving matter. Number 3, matter, however, attracts spirit back to it, realizing that it is the evolutionary plan of creation to enrich consciousness this way. Number 4, the two are united again. This process continues until spirit has fully absorbed all the lessons of matter, and at the same time matter is purged of its grossness. Each distillation represents a step forward. In meditation, the consciousness is gradually and painfully expanded by concentration and the striving for right relationship, but it is a very long process. In alchemical distillation, the crude botanical mass is equivalent to the prima materia, or first matter. Psychologically, it represented by our complexes or mental hang-ups. It is precisely this lowly, earthy material which is the basis of the work. The next step is to expose it to the heat of the element fire in the operation known as calcinatio. In the developmental process, this fire comes from the frustration of instinctual desires. This frustration leads to spiritual development if one has a viable relation to the self. Even in Homeric Greece, fire was considered a purifier and separator of the soul. Heat or fire causes the essence or soul to free itself from identification with the earthy, gross mass, and it begins to rise. What formerly seemed solid is changed to liquid and will emerge in a rejuvenated form. In terms of spiritual development, we can remain stuck at a certain stage until we fall in love or develop mystic devotion, when the blocks to further progress are dissolved. This is the work of the element water. We learn to identify with the free-soaring spirit rather than the personality. Thus, we push at our limits, gaining access to new states of consciousness. Essence is softened into a liquid, flowing state. Sublimatio is the operation of air, is an elevating process that transforms a low substance to a higher one by an ascending movement. The steam that contains the volatile oil is driven to the top of the flask, much as the spirit soars free in meditation. Temporarily released from the confines of earthly existence, we are freed from the personality to experience the self's immortality. In terms of psychological development, this means that we learn to see through the concrete, literal aspects of our existence to their inner symbolic meaning. Sublimatio leads to the separation of the soul from the body. Thus, sublimatio is an extraction process. It is the process of extracting the transpersonal objective meaning from our purely subjective interpretations of crisis in our lives. Contact with the self releases us from personal ego attributes. We then gain a living relationship with the archetypal dimension, which was known in the past as paradise or heaven. Finally, as the steam begins to cool and condense, the volatile essence begins to recoagulate, known in alchemy as coagulatio. This distillate takes on a new, highly refined existence, free of dross. The pure essence has been refined and fixed, becoming earthy once again. According to Jung, the process of fixation means the consolidation of feeling as firm convictions and a permanent content. In psychological development, there is both a lesser and greater sublimatio. The greater sublimatio leads to union with Godhead. In this instance, coagulatio has the ultimate meaning of the acquisition of an immortal body, but many rounds of distillation are required for this result. Even though one practices mystical meditation, coagulatio means that the free spirit is still connected with the limitations of physical life, duties, job, family, so forth. The lesser sublimation must always be followed by a descent in which spiritual values are brought back into a well-grounded lifestyle. In other words, to make insights practical, they must be grounded in daily life. When we view our lives from an elevated spiritual perspective, we are released from the merely personal view. We come to understand that the ups and downs of life have a transcendent, symbolic meaning that was not apparent at first. Another alchemical dictum says, sublimate the body and coagulate the spirit. Repeating the upward and downward movement brings refinement through the operation known as circulatio, or circulation. It can refer to the repetitions of distillation or to the emotional realization of opposites, ups and downs, leading to their reconciliation. When an essence is thoroughly purified, it is fit to combine with others in the operation called conjunctio, meaning union, friendship, intimacy, relationship. This marriage or blending of discrete essences reflects the union of the soul with Godhead. The result is the quintessence, that which is beyond fire, water, air, and earth. Returning to the more mundane level of perfumery, we can find the old alchemical axiom solve et coagula still represented in the art as the solvent and fixative. Steam distillation is still the underlying method of processing geranium, lavender, neroli, and other herbs and flowers. Improvement in steam and vacuum still has improved the product and the economics of extraction considerably. The process of expression is applied almost exclusively to collecting citrus oils. The oil-bearing cells of the peel are broken and the oil sponged up and filtered. The results of this process are poor, so these oils are generally mixed with extracts or with non-citrus oils. The machine process for clarifying oil uses a centrifuge. Extraction avoids the drawback of applying high temperatures to volatile substances that are destroyed by heat. Extraction can be done with hydrocarbon solvents that are then removed or by two other means. Enfleurage is a means of extracting oil by soaking blossoms in fat. The final method, maceration, immerses the flower petals in liquid fat or oils under gentle heat. In both maceration and enfleurage, the fat is collected and refreshed with new flowers until the fat is saturated with flower oil. Each method is appropriate for certain types of plants as flowers. Un momento, I must move forward my class planner just slightly. 1 second, ladies and gentlemen. Enfleurage is lily of the valley, jasmine, tuberose, orange blossom, jonquil. Maceration, cassie, rose, orange blossom, violet. Solvent extraction, reseda from Reseda odorata. Rose, jasmine, jonquil, tuberose, violets, cassie, orange blossom, carnation, mimosa, heliotrope, oak moss, stock. Different treatments yield slightly differing products even from the same raw material. Because of economics, only jasmine and tuberose are still extracted by enfleurage. Volatile solvents are the best choice for most flowers. Enfleurage was first tried in 1835 by Robiquet and came into general use around 1890. One of the most frequently used solvents is petroleum ether, but benzene and others also are used. So this is your lesson on alchemy for the day, and there is much more to learn, and I hope that you continue to study, because that's why you're here. You aren't my neighbor, you live in my house. It's a little different, because we're all at the Zeero Hotel. Okay, kids, until next time.